90%. That is the exact and honestly terrifying amount of an opinion someone forms about you in the first 90 seconds of meeting them. It's a silent judgment, cast and cemented before you even finish your very first sentence. A purely biological calculation happening entirely without your permission.
Welcome back to Learning with Pratik. If you're new here, I try to increase neuroplasticity by exploring a new topic every day. I do all the reading and researching so you don't have to. Today, we're opening up the hidden dictionary of human behavior. We'll be decoding the subtle biological signals that completely dictate our every interaction, whether we actually realize it or not.
You know, we obsess over our words. We meticulously script out our pitches, we rehearse our jokes in the mirror, we draft and redraft emails. Yet, there's a massive disconnect in how we communicate. Our words tell one highly curated story, while our bodies, well, they tell another story entirely. Our true intentions, our deepest insecurities, even our hidden dominance, they're all silently broadcasted right through our physical form, completely bypassing our conscious control. In face-to-face conversations, the vast majority of the actual message transferred between two humans is entirely nonverbal. It's basically a massive evolutionary mismatch between our highly evolved language and our deeply primal bodies.
Section 1. The unspoken conversation. The gestures we rely on every single day aren't just arbitrary social constructs. Let's actually look at how these reflexes manifest. It's pretty fascinating. When we're happy, we instinctively smile. When we're angry, we scowl. Nodding your head to show agreement is a reflex so deeply ingrained in our biology that even individuals born completely blind do it. And to harness this evolutionary hardwiring, clinical psychology uses what's called evidence-based assertiveness training. The foundational building blocks here are things like eye contact, facial expressions, tone of voice, your posture, and interpersonal space. And these are carefully engineered to reduce social anxiety and even combat depression. Because true assertiveness, it isn't about volume. It's not about aggression. It's a perfectly calibrated symphony of these physical variables, allowing us to project confidence entirely independent of the words we use.
Section 2, the power of palms. And what's deeply fascinating about human communication is the hidden role of our most highly evolved tools. Our hands have been the single most important physical tools in human evolution. In fact, there are literally more neurological connections between the brain and the hands than any other part of the body. Let's analyze the palm down gesture. When you issue a direction with your palm facing the floor, you're projecting a silent, almost primal authority. It's a non-threatening command. The person on the receiving end actually instinctively feels a sense of subordination. It's like an evolutionary echo of yielding to dominance. It establishes a rigid hierarchy without a single aggressive syllable ever needing to be spoken out loud. Now, contrast that directly with the palm up gesture. Throughout all of human history, the open palm has been strongly associated with truth, honesty, and allegiance. Think about taking an oath in a court of law, or how a dog naturally exposes its throat to a victor. We use the open palm to visually display that we are unarmed or vulnerable. When someone speaks to you with exposed palms, your brain unconsciously registers a really crucial signal. They're credible, they are safe. It's a gesture that instantly disarms skepticism. Section 3, decoding defensive posture. But what exactly happens when that vulnerability is exploited and we suddenly feel threatened? Well, when we're placed in high stress or anxious situations, our biological imperative kicks right in. We subconsciously attempt to protect our most vital, vulnerable areas, specifically the stomach, the heart, and the throat. In a social setting, the contrast between open and closed dynamics is incredibly stark. An open, receptive posture where people mirror each other with uncrossed arms fosters deep collaboration and psychological safety. Conversely, the closed-off stance, with arms tightly folded, acts as a literal physical barricade. People will so often claim they cross their arms simply because they're comfortable. But the reality? They feel comfortable because that closed physical barrier perfectly matches their insecure, defensive, emotional state. But the absolute most crucial point here is this. We can never rely on a single isolated movement. That is the amateur's mistake. Instead, behavioral experts look for what we call gesture clusters. It's a series of nonverbal signals read together. Just like a single word needs a full sentence to give a context, a single gesture needs a cluster to reveal the actual truth. We're essentially hunting for incongruencies. If the mouth smiles, but the arms are a fortress and the torso is angled right toward the exit, the body is telling the truth. The smile is just a mask. Let's deconstruct a deeply negative cluster in a real-world scenario, like a negotiation.
Notice the figure on the far right. He's leaning back, his legs are tightly crossed away from the speaker, forming a partial arm barrier. He's even using the folder on his lap as a literal, physical shield against the ideas being presented. Meanwhile, the man in the middle clasps his hands behind his head, an attitude of absolute, unyielding superiority. So, the speaker on the left might be using open palms, really pleading his case, but visually, his message is hitting an impenetrable brick wall. The gesture cluster has already delivered the verdict.
Section 4, the eye contact formula. While posture forms the robust vocabulary of this silent language, the punctuation is driven entirely by the eyes.
Maintaining appropriate eye contact is arguably the most critical facet of building rapport. If a person fails to meet our gaze, looking at us less than 1/3 of the time, we instinctively distrust them. We sense evasion or maybe severe submissiveness. And this introduces a really delicate dilemma. How much eye contact is too much? We walk this psychological high wire, stare too intensely, and you trigger an aggressive fight-or-flight response in their amygdala, making you deeply uncomfortable to be around. But avert your gaze too frequently, and you appear deceitful. So balancing this trust-building gaze is a constant, totally unconscious negotiation. To completely bypass this dilemma, clinical psychology offers the eye contact mirroring technique. The secret here is that there is no universal, perfect amount of eye contact. You just have to match your partner's unique rhythm. Look when they look away when they look away. But crucially, pause for 1 to 3 seconds before matching their break. If you mirror them instantaneously, the brain registers it as robotic mimicry, triggering subconscious alarms of manipulation. A slight, deliberate delay naturally anchors you squarely inside their personal comfort zone, effortlessly building trust.
Section 5, cultural context is king. But before you rigidly apply any of these behavioral rules, there is a very critical caveat we have to address.
While basic facial emotions like happiness and disgust are universally recognized across humanity, local body language customs vary dramatically. To see just how unconsciously specific our local customs are, let's look at a simple counting test. Ask an Anglo-Saxon to count to 5 on their hand, and there's a 96% chance they begin with their index finger. Ask a European, and there's a 94% chance they start with their thumb. It's an entirely unconscious reflex, yet it is strictly dictated by geographical and cultural conditioning.
When we analyze these cultural divides on a global scale, the contrasts are absolutely staggering. In the West, sustained eye contact signals honesty and deep attentiveness. But in many Asian and Middle Eastern cultures, that exact same prolonged gaze is perceived as a profound challenge or a glaring insult. Pointing with a single index finger, standard practice in the West, but highly offensive elsewhere where the full hand must be used. Even patting a child on the head, an act of pure affection in one culture, is deeply taboo in regions where the head is considered the sacred vessel of the soul. So fluency in body language requires a deep, uncompromising respect for local geography.
Which brings us right back to you. The moment you step into a room, before your vocal cords even vibrate, you have already started a profound conversation. I want you to answer this in the comments below. What does your baseline body language say about you before you even speak a word? Are you projecting an open, confident authority? Or are you silently building defensive walls? Thanks for watching. Tomorrow, we open a different page. Until then, Pratik, out.